Let's see here. Sefer Avoda. We're going to go to Temidin UMusafin. What have we been discussing until this point? They're talking about lighting the menorah. Okay, Chavite Kohen Gadol. Every day the Kohen Gadol is supposed to bring flour offering, a meal offering, made of solid. Sorry, there's a distinction between solid and flour. It says that an ordinary Kohen brings this sacrifice when he first takes on the job of being a Kohen. Okay, it's not done at Bar Mitzvah. It's when he is initiated into the service, and the Kohen Gadol has to do it every single day, and it has to come out of his pocket. And the mitzvah is to do half of it offered in the morning and half in the afternoon. Even if the Kohen Gadol is not present, by the way, he has to make sure that it's being offered on his behalf. So he has to have a fund there, fund with a D, so that his family can sponsor this. Why do I say family? Because we're going to encounter certain cases now where the Kohen Gadol himself is incapacitated or perhaps even dead. So someone has to be bringing it for him. And it's Docha Shabbos and the Tuma, which means that it has a set time. Kol Korban Shekavua Luzman. We're going to see that there's certain commandments, let's say, that the Korban, even though maybe it's supposed to be now, it doesn't violate Shabbos. We're going to see in Hilchos Chagiga. And it says here, Tufine, Shetien Na'ev Velo Teafeh Mi Ba'erev. Okay? Chazal have an interesting drasha from this. It says Tufine, it has to be proper and not done beforehand. Why is that important? Because we have certain meal offerings which are actually baked beforehand. The Shtei Alechem, for example, for Shavuos, so those are baked beforehand. Or Lechem Aponim. The Lechem Aponim are arranged every Shabbos on the Shulchan, but they're baked on Friday. The Chiddush over here is from Tufine that even though technically speaking, the Kohen Gadol can have his mincha prepared, let's say on Friday. The ones that he has to offer on Friday are offered on Friday, and another isaron is prepared half on Friday and baked properly, and then burned on the mizbeach on the Shabbos. Kamash Malon, that the whole process of creating this offering on behalf of the Kohen Gadol, even though he is an individual, it's offered on Shabbos from scratch. They prepare it from scratch on Shabbos. That's what they learned from the word tufine, which also itself is a very strange word. What is the shorish of tufine? Here's how it's spelled in the Torah. But, well, no, not the tuf, not the vav, not the yud, not the nun, and not the yud, just the pei. Okay? The shorish is aleph, pei, hey. But the aleph is missing for whatever reason. A lot of times you have the aleph at the beginning of a shorish in many conjugations. The aleph is silent. Okay? Especially in the future tense. The word like amar, aleph mem resh, in all the future tense conjugations, the aleph is silent. Yomar, tomar, nomar. The aleph is silent. So it doesn't even have to be spelled, technically speaking. And also with love, yohav, right? He shall love. The aleph is silent. So in this case, the aleph basically dropped out. And the hey at the end of the shoresh is also often drops away in many conjugations. Okay? So maybe the yud is a replacement for they, so you say the yud is not, but it seems that the yud is already part of the suffix. So in this shoresh, the only letter that's present is the pei. Another similar word is, for example, latate, to give. In Mishneh Hebrew, it's litain. So litain from the word yitain. Now, at least in the word yitain, we have the tuf and the nun of the shoresh, and the tuf as a dot to show that the first nun dropped off. But in the word latate, to give, all we have is the middle tuf of the shoresh. The nun at the beginning and the nun at the end are missing. And also the imperative form, tate, give. Nowadays we say tain, but sometimes the word biom tate, right? It's either with tzerei or segol, depending on the context. That is from the word to give, the shoresh, nun tuf nun. How many letters of the shoresh are present in that word? One, the middle word. Okay, interesting. Next, let's say they were to bake this meal offering the previous night, or miba erev means the previous day, yesterday before nightfall. Tipa sel belina. Then it would be disqualified because the night passes over it. Prepare the korban, and then night happens, so it's disqualified by night happening. It was basically deep fried. Remember, there's the marcheshet and the machavat, two different ways to deep fry the meal offering. The frying pan is considered a klei kodesh because the solet is put into this clay kodesh, it's been sanctified. So now it has a time limit. It has an expiration date, and that's overnight. So it just won't work. Tichinat sultan varkadan bachutz. Preparing the solet, grinding it up, and also sifting it is done outside of the temple courtyard. Veinan duchinet haShabbat, and that cannot be done on Shabbos. So preparing the soleth, having a supply in the temple for the Kohen to make a sacrifice, that you should do before Shabbos, just like gathering the wood. Can you gather wood? The temple needs firewood, right? The machzan is out of firewood for the temple. You need wood to burn the korban. Can you gather firewood on Shabbos for the temple? Really? I don't think so. In the temple, but there's no firewood in the temple. You have to go outside the city and start gathering wood or chopping down trees, whatever it may be. Can you do that? Apparently not. Okay, can't start doing Chilul Shabbos outside the temple in preparation for what needs to be done to the temple. We saw that, for example, had they bring their lulav and esrog and the arava, it's going to be Shabbos in the temple. So what they do? Wrote it beforehand, right? Even though the Torah says that you're supposed to celebrate with the lulav before God on the first day of Sukkot, even if it's Shabbos, how do you celebrate before God with the lulav and esrog? You pick it up. So that's part of the temple service, but they didn't do this back in the time you had to basically prepare for Shabbos. Hold on one second. We'll have a drink. God willing, who will be appointed Kohen Gadol for this purpose? Oh, question came in. By the way, feel free to ask questions. Are you allowed to burn the korban on Shabbos? Isn't lighting fire not allowed? No, the Torah specifically commands that the public sacrifices that are decidedly on Shabbos, that's when the Torah says to offer it. So it's burnt on Shabbos. All the korbanos are burnt on Shabbos. The Shnei Temidin and the Musaf of Shabbos, and if it's Rosh Chodesh or some other holiday, they burn all their korbanos then also. Yom Kippur, you're not allowed to make fires, but the Kohen Gadol, he's busy doing all sorts of malachas in Yom Kippur, right? He takes a bath 5 times, and he slaughters, which is a malacha, and he sprinkles the blood, and that's not a malacha, but he burns quite a few things on Yom Kippur, right? There's all these malachas, and the fellow who's taking the scapegoat out to the cliff, right? He's also basically violating Shabbos. He's leaving his place. He's tchum, if that is Isser D'Oraisa, it applies on Shabbos, or Isser D'Rabbanan, whatever it might be, and he does Hotza'ah. He's taking something out to Rishus Harabim, right? So there's all sorts of malachas. What? I can't. One thing that originated in the temple says you're supposed to remove things because it was started in the temple. I can't. The Ish Iti cannot start walking a goat out from Jerusalem out to the desert in order to throw it off a cliff. That's malacha on Shabbos or Yom Kippur. But because it had the confession on it, was brought in front of God. It's been sanctified for this purpose, and the Kohen Gadol confessed on it and has the lot on it. Now you can do this mitzvah. Okay, let's see here. Kohen sheikriv mechatza b'shacharit. So the Kohen Gadol, he brought his meal offering, the first half, in the morning, or was brought on his behalf. Like I said, he doesn't actually have to do it himself. Umeith onitma onolad lomum. But what happens to him in the meantime? He passes away, or he becomes contaminated, or he develops a blemish. He can no longer serve as Kohen Gadol. Uminu Kohen acher tachtav. So they quickly appointed a new Kohen instead of him. They had a backup anyways, waiting to go. Lo yavi chatzi saron bibeito. He should not bring the next chatzi saron, the next portion, from his own money. Doesn't mean literally from his house. He doesn't run home to bring it. It means from his property. The lo chatzi saron shel rishon. This new Kohen cannot bring his own, new half, and he cannot bring the other half of the korban that belonged to the first Kohen Gadol who became disqualified. Ela mivi saron shalem. Instead, the new Kohen Gadol should bring a holy saron, v'chotzehu, and divide it in half. And we said saron is shir challah, okay, about 2-point-something liters of solet. Umakriv mechatza, and he offers half of it as he's supposed in the afternoon. Umechatza aved, and the other half is just lost, okay, goes to waste. Nimtzu shnei chatzain krevin, shnei chatzain ovdim. So at the end of the day, we see that two halves of a minchat chavitei kohen gadol are offered properly, and two halves go lost. Okay, the afternoon half of the kohen who just became disqualified, and the morning half of the kohen who's now taking his place in the afternoon. Ve'elu shnei achatzayin ovdin. These two halves that go to waste. Manichinotan ad shetavor tzuratan. You just let them sit there until their form passes. What does that mean? That's a literal translation. It means until they spoil, because they've been baked, they've been prepared with oil and everything like that. So you wait until they get moldy or whatever it might be, and then what? V'yotzin levina sreifa, and then they're taken out to the temple, to the place where they burn. Let's say the chataot that have to be taken out. There's a lot of things that are taken out of the temple and burned, so that's where they're burned. And the same thing happens if the afternoon half, the Kohen Gadol offers the first half of his chavitin properly in the morning, but then the ones in the afternoon got lost for a while, or they became contaminated somehow, so they cannot be offered. So eventually you find them, so you just let them spoil, whatever it might be, and then take them out to be burned. But these two, where are they burned? In the Azara. There's a place also to burn them, and interesting. I like to see this. I wonder how often this actually happened. The fact is that this is a discussion in Gemara, so apparently this did happen. I mean, technically speaking, a Kohen Gadol does have to pass away sometime, so this was a relevant issue. Maybe if he passed away in the night, so it wasn't such an issue. But the day the Kohen Gadol passed away, this became an issue. Like, what do we do? The first half and the second half. They tried to appoint the Kohen Gadol quickly. Why? Because you need a Kohen Gadol in order to be able to do the service betuma. Okay. Made Kohen Gadol b'shacharit achar shekriv chatziyei saron. Let's say the Kohen Gadol died in the morning after he had offered his first half, the morning half. Hold on, a question came in. Okay, goodbye. Be well. V'lo minu Kohen acher. Still no new Kohen Gadol. Mevina yorshini saron shalem. V'osina oto chavitin. So his heirs, okay, the Kohen Gadol's, the dead Kohen Gadol's heirs, pay for this. They bring a new isaron, and they turn that into the chavitin. Ushlemaya takreva, and that's offered whole, not half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Make Kohen Gadol kodem sheakrivu baboker. Let's say he died even before they offered the first half in the morning. V'lo minu Kohen acher, and no new appointment. They don't have a replacement yet. Makrivin ota isaron shalem baboker. The isaron shalem bin arbaim. So that the isaron that they're supposed to bring and divide up in the morning, afternoon, is brought completely in the morning, and another isaron is brought completely in the afternoon. Okay. Ve'en koflin shamna ulvonata. But we don't therefore double, because we double isaron. We don't double the oil and the frankincense that's offered with it. Afal pisha nichbala solet. Even though now we're offering twice as much, so less. What's the point of this? The principle that comes out of here is that only a living Kohen Gadol causes his mincha to be divided. He has to bring an isaron. Machatzita boker, machatzita erev. So when he was alive, they divided it. One half for the morning, one half in the afternoon. If he died before they even divided it, so they have to bring it whole. Okay? So you basically, over the course of the day, the amount of solet has been doubled, but the frankincense and the oil that's prescribed to come with it is not. El mafrishim lehem shloshet lugin shemen. The kometz levona still brings with it the 3 log of shemen. You said a log is about 300 ml, or a little bit more than that, so it comes out to about a liter of oil. The kometz levona, a handful of levona. Log umechza shemen, v'chetzi kometz levona lisaron shel boker. Half of this is basically offered, half of the oil and the kometz of the frankincense is brought with the isaron of the morning. And the other half, log umechza shemen, the chatzi kometz levona, the 1.5 log of oil and half of the handful of frankincense are brought with the isaron shel ben arbaim. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the 3rd chapter. This is the 4th chapter. Not everything in this chapter, by the way, which talks about how they would conduct the service on a daily basis or a weekly basis, is in Maseches Tamid. Okay, Maseches Tamid tells us about the daily service in the temple. A lot of what we know also about the service in the temple on a regular basis is where? Okay, if you're a child studying Mishnahs for the first time, so you go through Zerayim, kind of interesting. Brachos, that's practical. And then you get into the rest of Zroyim, which is actually about Zroyim. It's agricultural. So a lot of children nowadays don't have any experience with that. In the olden days, of course, a child, what's the first thing he has to do? His father has to teach him already at a young age how to learn how to farm or you'll starve, right? And children have to help out. But this thing, by the way, I'm very happy about this. My child's school takes the boys one morning, a few hours every morning, every week, usually, to the Torah farm. Okay. A farm where they do all sorts of agricultural things, al pia Torah. Okay. It's basically mitzvahs, yishuv haaretz, and mitzvahs atulios ba'aretz in a practical way. So the kids are not, foreign to this thing, and they actually plant things and do stuff. The farm has a permanent rabbi mashgiach there. A local dayan serves as the rabbi of the farm. And he's an expert in, Trumas and Maasros and Shemitah and everything like that. He's written a few svarim about that, and he teaches the children there. So that's amazing. When I was growing up, farming, Eretz Yisrael was a dream. In America, you don't learn Lishuv mitzvos satulis ba'aretz. So this is even as advantage. Here, people are learning the sugyos, but they're just learning it. The minority are the ones who are actually farming. And now the children are actually shown this, even though I doubt many of them will become farmers or work in agriculture. At least they should have this exposure. So too, the child learning Zerayim back in the day, it was practical. When he learns the first Seder of Mishnayos in Rabbi Yonassi's time, because children will have a lot of experience with those things. Nowadays, the kid in the Talmud Torah, as it may be, is learning the Mishnayos, but how often will he put it into practice? Not so much. And then he gets into Zmanim, right? He gets into Moed. Sorry, Zmanim is what Rambam calls it. He gets into Seder Moed. So he learns about Shabbos, and if he's smarter, he'll also learn Eruvin and Beitzah. It's very good. And then he gets to Yoma. And Maseches Yoma talks about what? But it doesn't just talk about Yom Kippur. It also talks about, on most days they did this, but on this day they do that. On most days they do this. In the first few chapters, we learn a lot about what was the regular service in the temple. So what the Rambam has in this chapter is taken from Tamid, but a lot of it comes from Yoma. Okay? That's where Yoma talks about it. Matter of fact, there's a few machlokas in, or some of those Mishnahs talking about every day or just Yom Kippur. Okay, so children learn about the regular service in the temple first when they get to Seder Moed. They get to Kachah much later, right? No one learns Yoma? Okay, fine. Teach, God willing, we should have a child, a son, a masculine child soon. And in a few years from now, you'll see he's going to start studying Mishnayos, and he's going to do brachos first and go on from there. They do it in order. There's a reason why the Siddharim are like that. And he's going to, God willing, get to Yoma before he gets to Tamid. Tamid's in the back. It's in Kachim. But Yoma's in Moed. So his first exposure to the daily temple service will be when he gets to Yoma. Not in Shabbos, not in Eruvin, not in Beitzah. Okay? It starts in Yoma. Okay. All these services that they do every day, they would do it with a pious. What's a pious? Like a lot or a lottery. Okay. There's a way to, I guess, fairly distribute the privilege of conducting the temple service. So there's a lot of Kohanim. We imagine that there are certain cases where it would be that perhaps they didn't even need to do a pious, and there are not that many Kohanim on board, and it's cold and rainy, and it's difficult to do it. So they're going to swap out and try to, spread it out on as many people and keep people indoors and warming themselves up as much as possible. A Levi working in the temple on a rainy day, he could wear as much clothing as he wants. Can't wear shoes. No one's allowed to wear shoes on the Temple Mount, but he could be wearing a coat and a winter and a sock hat. There's no prescription what he has to wear or can't wear. But the Kohen is wearing a linen tunic and also some linen pants and a belt and a hat, and that's not significant. If it's cold, he's getting wet and cold, so it's hard. But let's say it's a normal sunny day. So there's a lot of Kohanim on hand, so they have to come up with a way to decide who does what. Kol Kohanei Batei Avot Shel Yom Nichnasin LaLishkat HaGazit. All the Kohanim of that family, that's a base of, who are working that day, go into the chamber of hewn stone. What's it normally used for? Chamber of hewn stone, Lishkat HaGazit, Lishkas HaGazis. Who normally congregates there? That's the Sanhedrin's place. Is the Sanhedrin there 24/7? No. Achar sheyaleh amud hashachar, after dawn. Amud hashachar or alot hashachar. This is before sunrise. Okay, this is when the day starts at dawn. Vehein milubashin bevigdei tuna, and they're dressed in their priestly vestments. Until this point, many of them were sleeping, so they were not wearing bigdei kahuna. But now they all went to mikvah. They get dressed in order to prepare for the day's service. And the one in charge of these lots is among them, and they surround him in a circle. Hakafa. Notel matznefet or mitznefet me'al rosho shel echad mehen umachzira. And the muneh takes off one of their turbans, the Kohen hat, and then gives it back to him. V'hu ha'ish shematchilim limnot mimenu. And he's the starting point. He's the one where the count starts. Okay. What do they do? Umifisin kamoshet bear. Some have mefayasin, but it's not mefayes. Mefayes means to appease someone. Even though it's a pious, okay, it's not a pial verb. Pious is a noun, like bayit. Okay. There is a word now in modern Hebrew, levayet. What's levayet? That means to domesticate an animal. But it's not there's no verb lezayet from the word zayet. Okay. So it's not a pial. It's not a pial form. It's mifisin. And we're explaining what it means. Yeah. I have a question here. What if it gets busy and there's more Kohanim needed? Okay. How will it get busier in the day? A lot of people show up with their own personal sacrifices. Okay. That's how it could get busier. Hold on 1 second. V'yotzin la'avodah anashim shovdim, and those who actually have earned the privilege, or they won the privilege to do the sacrifices, so they go out and they start working. Ushar kohanim, a lot of kohanim are there; they have nothing to do. Too many. Mosrino tam lachazonim, they are given over to the chazonim. What are the chazonim? Yeah, so they're the ones who are in charge of other things. Okay, let's say the clothing. Okay. Umafshitinotan at Bigdei HaKodesh. So they take off their Bigdei Kahuna. They realize too many Kohanim can't just stand around wearing Bigdei Kahuna. Take off the Bigdei Kahuna. And basically the only thing they're left with is now their pants. They lose their tunics and their robes and their hats. They're standing around in their underwear. Ad sheluvshim Bigdei Chol. And they put back on their regular clothes. The chozrinu foshtin at michnasayim shel kodesh. And once they're sufficiently clothed with regular clothes, they could take off the michnasayim. The michnasayim go last. Why do they do this? Dignity. If they had to strip them down to everything, they'd be exposed. And then they take the kalim. In this case, kalim many times is clothing. Clothing are halachically kalim. Ma'anaf kamina, they can contract impurity. And they put it back on the shelves. That's what chalonot means. You'd call a shelf like this a chalon in the base of mikdash. Why? Because, they basically do that, based on the base of. So they don't want the Kohanim, dirtying the clothing, and they have it there. There's a note over here. It says that, what about Korban Yachid? The Tiferes Yisrael says that they would also have a pious for that. Okay? But there are others who say, wait a minute, no, it's the individual could choose which Kohen does the service, remember? So they do that. Yes. And according to Aruch HaShulchan, they could basically choose which Kohen. But by the way, you could imagine there's some days, especially Shabbos, where they're not expecting individuals to come. Shabbos, a lot of Kohanim are on duty, but there's a lot less sacrifices. So this probably was more common than this. Let's see here. Yeah. Well, basically, no. Nadarim and Nadavos and things like that, even on Yontif also. Only what the Torah prescribes has to be brought. So it's the first day of Yontif, people are going to bring their Olos Re'iyah and their Shalmei the Chagigas and stuff, because that's the day they have to bring it. But Toda and everything else, they're not going to bring. Chatas, no. They're not going to do that on Shabbos. So Shabbos, there's a lot less work to do in the temple. Right? And the Musaf of Shabbos is a lot less than any other Moed, right? Just a regular Rosh Chodesh, 2 extra bulls, a ram, 7 lambs, a chatas, right? That's a lot of animals. Shabbos is just 2 more lambs. Okay? Lamb's quite small. Okay, 2 of the same lambs they offer every day. Ketzad mifisin. So how do they do this process? Omdim be'ekef. They stand around in a circle. Umas kimim al minyan shemonim mea o elef. Okay, they agree predetermined number, 100 or 1,000, somewhere in between, right? O kol minyan sheyaskimu alav, or some other number. Omer lehem hatzbiu. And then Mimuna says, stick out a finger. Hatzbiu means point the finger. What's the source of the word hatzbiu? Well, I see tzadi bet ayin, right? From the word seva. Litzboa means to color something. Okay? Latzbia would mean to point. Why? Because you have the word etzba. The word etzba is an extra aleph at the beginning. The aleph is apparently not part of the shoresh. So the hifiel form is hatzbiu, not ha'atzivu or something like that. Hatzbiu means stick out your finger. Stick out a finger. Everybody can choose to put out one finger or two. If you're really mathematical and you're a quick calculator, you see where the starting point is, and you see how many before you, and you pick the right number. But most people, if it's, let's say, a number like 700 or 35 or whatever it might be, it's kind of hard to calculate if you want to end up winning because you have to anticipate what everybody else is going to count, one or two fingers and how many times around. They even do this nowadays. We grew up, you remember the 21st finger? Okay. Ask an American what that is. It's a similar pious, choosing between two or three children who gets the privilege of doing something. You ask them each one to put out a certain number of fingers, between 1 and 5 fingers. You start counting. And the 21st finger is it. V'imotzi shalosh, monin lo shalosh. And if he puts out 3 fingers, so I guess they count it as 3 fingers. They're going to count, so he's going to get skipped over. Okay? Ve'en motzin gudel b'mikdash. You don't put out his thumb. Fingers, only among the fingers. Mipnei haramaim, shagudol katzar, because it's the cheaters. It's shorter than the other fingers. V'noach lotzio ulchfoto. What's going to happen here? Sorry, for lichfoto. What's going to happen? He sees the count coming. He put out 5 fingers. He realizes, it's his advantage to actually just have 4, so he'll bring his thumb back in. Or he sees 4 is more advantageous to be 5, so now he'll stick it out. So we just don't count thumbs, period. Okay? V'amotzi gudal ein moninoto lo. If he does stick out his thumb, it doesn't count. They're not going to count that one. Let's see. Yeah. So what happens? That's how they figure out who's going to get what. It says here, according to the Rambam, we count each finger individually, except for the thumb. And according to Rashi, Goldam nispar pa'amachat, v'amotzi agudal eino nispar klal. And according to Rashi, they just skip him entirely. He put out his thumb, so he's not going to get anything. He tried to cheat, so now he can't do it. Limnot. Now he starts counting. Min ha'ish hayadua sheisir mitznafto tchila. Start from the fellow whose turban was taken off. Umoneh al etzbotein. He starts counting fingers. Milchozer chalila ad sheyashlim aminyan sheyiskimulav. He keeps counting in the circle until they get to the number that was predetermined. Okay. I would hope they wouldn't pick a number like 1,000 because it would take quite a while to go through and start counting to 1,000. Shilem or sheshalem. What's the correct verb? Does anybody here? Do you have a makbili there? What's the nikud of this word? Hold on 1 second. It shouldn't be shilem because that means he paid. So I guess it's a past tense, shalom. No, but so hishlim is a hifiel, but this is a pal, so it's shalom. Uncommon verb there. Okay, the one where we get to the conclusion, we get to the complete number, so he's the winner. Okay, it says here, shalom aminyan eitzel etzbo. Okay, his finger that's the one where they win. Hu shiatzah b'fayis rishon la'avodah. So he gets the first lot. He gets to start the service. Why are we doing this with fingers? Why don't we just count the person? The answer, everybody knows this one. You're not to, yeah. Ha'isha shalom. Okay, completed. I know what it means. The only question is what's the vowelization here, the vocalization. So it should be shalom. Okay. So it says here that we're not supposed to count people. Wife can't count Jews. Period. So the Rambam seems to hold that way, even to go to war. There's a big machlokas there. I think one of the early chief rabbis has a well-known mimer about taking a census in the state of Israel, and they say that perhaps you need a reason to do so. Right? One Mikkel opinion says that if you have a reason to count them for a specific purpose, perhaps you have a heter to count Jews directly. And some say you first have to get a heter to count them. And even when you have such a heter, you have to do something indirectly. And there's a lot of opinions in the middle. The Rambam holds it doesn't matter what your heter was. Okay, sometimes you have to do it indirectly. And he gives the example of Saul, who counted, apparently, this one means batlai, means he counted them with lambs, okay, kid goats. He used livestock to count his soldiers before attacking Amalek. And by the way, did Saul actually attack Amalek? Was he the aggressor? It's just like, okay, time to kill Amalek. You got to go find them. As we pointed out before, it seems Amalek started the war with him. Okay. Why is it forbidden to count Jews? Because the Torah says so. Okay. Forbidden to count Jewish people, lest there be a plague. Okay. It said, it's alluded to in Parshas Shkolim. It says you count the Jewish people, they're supposed to give half shekels. That's, by the way, the half shekels go toward the sacrificial funds for the temple. But it also says that, I'm not supposed to count the Jewish people, the chaper al nafshotechem, it's a kapara. If you start counting the Jewish people, you're going to cause problems. So the better way is to, just count them indirectly. Yeah. It's Dr. England had a wonderful speech about this 2 years ago, about the dangers of counting Jewish people and Schrodinger and the rest of them, and why it is he should avoid trying to look at things, and the bracha is only dwelling upon something which is hidden from the eyes. Basically, causing a count makes you realize the problem. And just that you have a choice. Now that you actually took a peek at something, you're going to have to see that, oh, how do you interpret that, and where you're going to start seeing the problems. So if you don't look too closely, you're not going to see a problem, and the problems are going to stay, basically, they're not going to be real actualized. So they did this a lot, 4 times a day. B'shacharith, hapayat harishon, mi torem et hamizbeach. Early in the morning, they see who is going to take the ashes off of the altar. We discussed that in weeks past. Hafisu v'zacha misha zacha litrom. Once they do this process, they know who has the privilege to remove the ashes. And he is also the one who sets up the wood on the pyre for burning the sacrifice of the day. And he brings these 2 boards, or the 2 logs, up to the altar. He's also the one who has the privilege of taking the fire pan, fill it with coals, to bring from this outer altar to the inner altar, in order to burn the incense. Hapayas Hasheni, the second lot, Zochin bo shlosha asar al seder amidatan. Then 13 get to win. We started from 1 and another 12, and they are going to process a sacrifice. Ketzad, how does it work? Habumuneh omer lehem atzbiu. The appointee tells people to point. Umoneh kederech shabiarnu. When he starts counting the way we described before. V'zeshi atzab b'payas rishon hu shochet tamid shel shachar. The one who wins this not pious rishon, but pious rishon, the one who wins this. So he is the one who slaughters the morning sacrifice. Vasheni shehu omed b'yetzido, and the one next to him, number 2. So he is going to hu mikabel dama tamid v'hu zorko. He's the one who receives the blood of the tamid in the cup and throws it on the altar. So one gets the slaughter and one catches the blood and throws the blood on the altar. Vashlishi hasamuch lashini. The next one, who's number 3, who's next to number 2, midashen mizbeach hapnimi zu mizbach haktoret. He removes the coals, the ashes that's left from the inner altar from yesterday, and he prepares basically for the new incense offering of today. Reviisha b'tzido, number 4, who's next to him, he takes out the old oil and wicks from the menorah and sets up and lights, according to the Rambam, the menorah again. V'achamishi, the 5th one, ma'aleh rosha tamid v'raglola kevesh. He takes the head and the hind leg of the tamid, that's the lamb they're offering in the morning. He brings it up the ramp of the altar. Vashishi ma'aleh shtei yadayim. Number 6 brings the 2 forelegs. Yadayim is the 4 legs, reglaim are the hind legs. Vashavi ma'aleh oketz v'regel. The 7th one, he brings up the oketz. That's a nice way of saying the backside, the hind side, and the other hind leg of the sacrifice. Normally, oketz, if you're referring to a fruit, like an esrog, that's where the stem was. Okay? Hold on 1 second. Question? Okay, fine. You don't have to excuse yourself. You're welcome to go whenever you need to. It's a mitzvah to help your wife also. Okay. Hashmini maleh chazeh v'ha-gira. The eighth one brings up the breast and the gira. That's like part of its digestive system. That's where the rumen comes from. It's a ruminant animal, so it has place. It has to chew its cud. So that's the gira. That's one of the stomachs there. What's the exact one? I don't think to say. Everybody used to know. In the olden days, people were much more involved. Most people don't know the kishkas of these animals. They don't know where the obobasim and the basic kosos and all the rest of them are. Remember, they have a very complex digestive system and what we call the four stomachs. So this is one of them. Vatashi'i maleh shtei adifanot. The ninth one brings up the two sides of the animal. Wasiri maleh akravayim. The 10th one brings up the innards. V'acharasar, the 11th one, maleh sulet hanesachim. He brings up the fine flour of the nesachim, the meal offering that's supposed to accompany. Here we said before, nesachim includes, even though it literally means the libation, it includes oil and the solet also. Mashnei Masar, the 12th one, maleh chavitin. He brings up the Kohen Gadol's personal meal offering. Vashlusha asar, maleh yain shel nesachim. He brings up the wine. The solet contains oil already, so he brings the wine. That's libation. It's in a bottle, a ceremonial bottle. It's going to be poured onto ceremonial receiving cup or the sink that's at the top. Well, payas hashlishi, the third time they do a payas, a lot in the temple on a daily basis, is Omer beit av sheloto hayom. The one in charge tells all the members of this father's house, this family of that day, this is only open to those who have not yet had a chance to offer the Ketores. They wanted to make sure that Kohanim, at least once in their lives, have the chance to offer the Ketores because the Chazal said that it has the capacity to enrich the one who performs the service. Okay, Chadashim Laktoret. Those who are new. If a person already had the privilege of offering Ketores once in his life, he was not in this lot. It kabsu, Eitzal Munev Yafisu. They gather around him and they have the lot. Umi Sheyatzab Fayas Zerishon, the one who ends up on him, he's the 21st finger. Hu Sheyizkelak Tir Ketoret. So he's the one who gets the privilege of bringing the Ketores. Literally, it doesn't mean burning it, it means causing it to smoke. Fourth time, a Payasa Revi, mid Kaptzin Kulam, everybody gathers together, unlike the previous one. Umifisin Leda, Mi Male Evarim, Minakevesh Lamizbeach. They want to know who's going to bring the various limbs up of this from the kevesh, not keves, okay, kevesh with a shin. It means from the ramp to the altar. It says all these previous ones they basically placed the different parts of the korban on the ramp. Afisu v'zacha misha zacha. So they do the lot, and those who win. So this is basically a Talmud of the morning. But the Rambam says they have four payas. One in the afternoon. How are they going to decide what to do the entire afternoon service, which is basically identical to the morning service? So the Rambam answers, Tamid shel ben arbaim, for the afternoon service, aim if you see no payas acher. There's no more lots. Ella kol kohen shezacha ba'avodah min avodot shacharit. Whoever won a privilege in the morning, yizkeh ben arbaim. So he does the same service in the afternoon. He earned it twice. Chutz min aktoret, except for this one, the Payas Shlishi Ketores. We're going to look for a new person to bring the Ketores. Shein if you've seen La Payas Acher bin Arbaim. There's a second lot drawn in the afternoon to see who can bring the Ketores. So we have O Kol Misha Lo Yiktir Ketor Me'olam Me'anshem Oto Beidav Yafisu Alaleha. Once again, they give a chance to whoever has never had a chance to offer Ketores in his life, and they decide among them. Vim Kvar Ktiru Kulan Mi Mehem. Let's say, thank God, they've all had a chance to offer Ketores once in their lives. So all the Kohanim of that day, they get to participate in this lot to see who gets to offer Ketores. And the one who won at Shachris, he gets to do it now twice. He gets to do it also in the afternoon. Yeah, an amazing privilege. It doesn't say that about the other korbanos. Today, when we concluded Sefer Avodah, we saw that the Rambam brings a Me'ilah. Actually, he doesn't bring it to Me'ilah. This saying I wrote into my version because Rambam says in Mor Nevuchim. So we'll jump the gun here. In Mor Nevuchim, the Rambam tries to find mitzvahs, reasons, the idea behind the korbanos, why, and a bunch of other mitzvahs also. The Rambam says you try to find tamei mitzvot. It's a mitzvah to try to contemplate the commandments and see how it is they are purposeful and help us. So the Rambam says various reasons why the sacrifice is like that and what this involves. And then he says, Ki techdal indor, if you decide you're not going to obligate yourself to bring any sacrifice, that's not going to be a sin. There are many sacrifices that are obligatory. A person is prescribed to bring a korban pesach, and like we said, the holiday sacrifices. But other than that, a person is not considered in any way bad if he, for whatever reason, does not take it upon himself to offer a voluntary burnt offering or a shlomim or whatever it may be. Okay, if he abstains, it's not so bad. I'll read the exact words that the Rambam says here. Well, actually, this is a paraphrase. Okay, he says, the cholzeh l'mishrat salakriv. This is talking about a person who wants to bring a korban. Im lo na'aseu legamre ein chet aleinu klal. As it says, v'chi techadal l'dor lo yev v'chachet. And it also begins Sefer Vayikra, Adam ki akriv bikem korban l'Hashem v'ritzonechem. Has to be brought of your will. If a person doesn't want to bring sacrifice, it's not so bad. Perhaps maybe it's not even ideal. Better just to keep your mouth shut and not obligate yourself to doing anything. So it's not so bad if a person's not involved in the sacrificial service beyond what the Torah prescribes to him. And I think Rav Kook was onto this also. Rav Kook found a way to say that eventually we'll be minimizing our animal sacrifices, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that in a more, I guess, sublime, advanced religion, which we're not there yet, but we're getting there. Last halacha, b'Shabbat, sheyesh sham Temidin UMusafin u'shnei bezechei levona, ketzad heim ovdim. Shabbos, there's a little bit more. There's Temidin, there's 2 lambs to offer, and another 2 as musaf in the middle of the day. And also they have to offer the 2 cups of frankincense, which are with the lechem aponim. It's not a lot of work, by the way. Lechem aponim is not burned on the altar, by the way. It's eaten by the kohanim. Mifisim b'shachar anshe oto beitav shel mishmar yotzei. In the morning, the lot is between the family that is now concluding its week of service. They're on their way out. Their privilege is to bring the morning sacrifice and the 2 lambs of the musaf. And whoever won the avodah of the morning, he also gets to bring the 2 lambs of Shabbos. That's the musaf there is. The incoming group, watch, they have their own lots to decide who offers the afternoon sacrifice. But even though technically the outgoing watch has more to do because they offer 2 more lambs, they're the ones who get the musaf, they still divide the lechem upon among themselves. They don't get to eat the lechem upon him until they burn the 2 cups of frankincense on the fire. And also you're supposed to salt them, the levona, like any other sacrifice, has to be salted. And after the musaf is offered, that's when they burn them. The 2 kohanim, each, they offer the 2 bazichin. So I guess we'll stop it there. That is basically the service that's unique to Shabbos. 2 more lambs and burning 2 cups of frankincense. It's not a lot at all, but that's what's special for Shabbos, and that's the sign. Probably makes a good smell then. And then they eat the lechem upon him. It's also interesting, just like God has a special portion of His bread, korban lachmi lishai is doubled on the Sabbath. So too, the kohanim get to just have special bread on Shabbos. It's not for naught that our sages told us that we should also have specifically meals of double bread on Shabbos. It's alluded to in the Torah, but it's not a Torah commandment. It's a Chazal commandment. So we should, we'll leave it with that. We should live to see the destruction of Israel's enemies, the arrival of proper leadership. That's what people mean with Bias Goel Tzedek, and the reinstitution of the temple service already tomorrow. Be well. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. B'nitzachon.